Welcome to the Creative Warriors Podcast, the female heart and soul of photography. So we are back with Colleen Minuik, and special guest, and she is going to continue to talk about mindfulness, slowing down, one of my weaknesses, and then balance and time management, which is as a woman and as a professional, those are important things to learn how to navigate. Yeah. So first question for you this morning or this afternoon, whatever it is how do you incorporate your personal experiences and perspectives into your photography work or photographic work?
Yeah, so I think over time, I have increased the value of my experience without the camera, without photography, for example. And so, as I talk about in some of my workshops, I don't actually go out on photo shoots. I go out on experiences, and my camera just comes with me for the ride. And so I try to stand up paddleboard, for example, or, I go for a hike, or, whatever, there's another activity out there. I go for a drive. I go to see what the flowers are doing over around that bend, whatever it is. And again, that's curiosity driving me. That's discovery driving me, as opposed to I'm going to go make a photograph. And I've just learned through, the Wallace model of creativity, for example, where you can't really jump to what is step number 3 in the creative process, which is you can't force a photograph. You can't force an aha moment. You have to do the first 2 steps first, which is preparation and incubation, or in my case, it's filling your brain with knowledge and ideas and then incubating them and visualizing them into, some form of art, whether that be a photograph or writing, a poem, a painting. For me, I don't limit myself. I kind of just however it comes out is awesome. And so I focus on the first step of the Wallace model of creativity, which is to fill your brain with knowledge and ideas. So when I go to a location, that's the experience is all I expect. Like if I make a photograph, great. If I don't make a photograph, great. Like doesn't matter if I bring home pixels or not. And so that is a shift, a pretty significant shift. And that shifted in that 3rd artist in residency in Acadia that I talked about earlier, where I was making pretty photographs, but they weren't fulfilling. And now it's like, okay, all the photographs that I make now have a meaning. They have a purpose. They have a reason for existing. And I don't mean like the 9 million frames that it takes to get the, composition right, or or the focus right, or depth of field right, or the wind's blowing. I'm talking about, from a thematic perspective, from an actual, I loved this scene, and this is how I was feeling about it in the moment. And so I'm going to try to make it into the best photograph possible. So for me, experience absolutely drives what I photograph, how I photograph. I mean, it drives, technical decisions. For me, it is the start of my photographic work. And hopefully through those experiences, those different experiences, I can share that with the outside world, and people have their own experiences in their own way with those things. So
I know that's definitely something. I was on one of your workshops. Was it this year or last year? Time flies. I don't even know.
I know.
I think it was this year, actually.
Earlier this year. Yes. Just a few months ago, it turns out. It's so
and
great.
one of the things I hope to gain from that workshop was, it was a small workshop, just so the audience knows. It was only a limited amount of women. And it was just an adventure for me. And it was about learning to slow down and be more mindful. But I definitely got on the right path from your workshop. So I knew you would be really good on this subject. Because I really just allowed myself to be in the space rather than just, okay, what can I see? What can I take home? What can I shoot? So it definitely helped to do a mind shift. But listening to you and watching you allowed me to really embrace that whole concept on a much deeper level. So
Yeah, and part
Unbelievably
of
good
that,
advice.
I think, at least in my own experience, to remove the expectation that you're going to make a photograph, like that was really hard for me, right? I'm a photographer. That's what I do. I run around and I make photographs, right? Like that's what you're supposed to do. You've got a camera in your hand to use it, right? And so for me, I when I disconnected and said, I'm gonna let the process happen. And you make remarkably better pictures. You make remarkably more meaningful pictures that way. And it just, I mean, I'm thrilled to hear that you felt like you experienced that in the Smokies on the workshop. That's important to me. It's important for people to sit in a space, or stand in a space, or just walk around, or whatever that is, and really connect with it on an individual level. And if I can interject here, we got to talk about this slowing down thing. Can we talk about slowing down?
Slowing down.
I
We can
have
talk about slowing down.
I have some pet peeves, and one of them is being told to slow down. It makes me crazy. I took a workshop in 2003. I was making the transition from black and white development to color slides. I had never photographed color slides, so I wanted to. And I mean, I was on this workshop. I was over here. I was over there. I was all over the place, right? Like, oh my
That
God, this
sounds
is
like
so
me.
amazing. Yeah, right. Well, it's all of us, right? When we get
I'm like
excited,
a little kid in a candy store.
right? Especially you're in a new place. Like, it's amazing.
Mhm.
Woo, right? And so the instructor's like, you've got to slow down. And I mean, I think maybe my head might have exploded, like when he said that, because I was like, I don't want to slow down. Do you see how much is out? Do you see? And do you see how much work I need to do? Do you see? Like, I'm not going to slow down. And for those who know me, like you and others, and perhaps even those who don't know me, who are listening to this now, you can tell by now I am not a slow person. Like, I get very excited very easy. I'm very enthusiastic. I can thank my mother for that. We call her the Energizer Bunny. She can run circles around me. It's hereditary. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm embracing it. So I'm going with it. But it makes me crazy when I hear we should slow down. And it's a personal problem. I understand. You guys, whatever works for you is fine. For me, slowing down made me crazy. But what it was trying to get to is paying attention. And paying attention is very important to me. I can pay attention fast. Maybe I miss stuff. Even if you pay attention, you're going to miss a million things. But paying attention and being mindful and being in the present moment is really at the heart of my photography now. And so you can use, semantics are important to me. I'm a writer, so that's important to me. If slowing down doesn't resonate with you or your audience, I throw it out the window. I hear it, I get a little like twitchy, and then we move on. But
I
paying
think
attention is important.
and maybe it is just a matter of semantics, but for me, when I say slowing down, to me, it's slowing down the mind.
Mm-hmm.
So that I can pay attention to the sight, so I can listen to the voice, and it's slowing down the chatter.
Oh, sure. That makes
That
a
the
lot of
negative
sense.
chatter, to me, that's the slowing. It's not
That makes a
necessarily, and I
lot of
am
sense.
like the little bunny looking for everything I can see when I'm in a space, so I get that.
Also the reason why
If
we're
you haven't
friends.
noticed, it's like it's crazy. But that's
I
part of the
love that,
joy.
actually. I love that association. That is certainly not the association I would have made. And I do like that because I think we do have a lot of chatter in our brains. We've got a lot of life going on. And one of the ways very early on that I tried to control that chatter is I did what basically is called effective abstention. Like it's a distraction where I would hum a song. I would hum Flora's Secret by Enya to make my brain shut up. And now there's obviously some different ways that I get into more of a mindful state and a little bit more meditative flow state, if you will. But chatter in your brain's a real thing. I like that. I hadn't made that association earlier. I thought that's really great. Yeah. Do what you need to do to shut that chatter down. Because if you're like, you can't release that mental energy that you need to be creative and to, pay attention and incubate and visualize and all of the things that need to go into a more creative headspace. That's a really good point.
And just experiencing the moment, you have to quiet all that stuff. And it might be quieting the mind rather than slowing. Or it could be both. I don't know. Everybody's a little different, but
I mean, I'm again not a slow person. So even when I quiet my brain, I'm still probably pretty fast. But
well, you're a highly intelligent person, so I think that comes with the territory. So I have a good one for you. So
okay.
And I think this is true, and this is a society thing that happens as we grow older. And I happen to know personally that you don't have an issue with this. So I want to ask you this question. So how do you strive to bring a sense of joy and playfulness to your photography work, but also remaining mindful and present? So, and I know you love to enjoy the moment in the field, and not too many people would spend an hour with a pond. But I know that you would, because there's cool things happening there. Or
I would have spent 2 or 4 if we could have.
It was really just a mud pit too. But you have to, for the audience, you have to check out Colleen's Instagram to see what we're talking about. She has one that is just incredibly beautiful, and it's literally patterns on what was it?
It was a puddle.
It was a puddle.
So we were in the middle of our workshop when this happened in the Great Smoky Mountains. To give some people some context to what we're talking about, we were in the Great Smoky Mountains. We were back at the mill area on Cades Cove, and we had just kind of been like, okay, everybody go do their thing for an hour. We'll meet back here. And one of our fellow participants was like, hey, Colleen, there's bubbles. And I was, you know what happens with me on bubbles. And when I walked over to the puddle, it was like way more than bubbles. Like, it was insanity. And so we, like, the two of us literally sat there, and, everybody kind of came by and whatever. And we sat there for an hour. We didn't move. I think this was at the, like, I kind of wait for everybody. And so this was at the back end of the group. And so, we just sat there. It was unreal. So and I really think when I first started photography, I was so hung up in learning the technical that I didn't really, I went to places that were meaningful to me. There were places that I was excited about, but I really didn't know how to interject that emotion and that joy into, or sadness or whatever it is, into my photographs really until that 2013 timeframe. That was a really big inflection point for me. Some people have heard the story before, but I'll repeat it here because I think it's worth sharing again. Is, in, what was it, 2010, I'm my second artist in residency with Acadia. I had the chance to start the photojournalism program for their Scudic Education Adventure. It's a program for middle schoolers to come on into Acadia. They stay on the Scudic Peninsula and they learn about science and art in Acadia. Like, it's amazing. It's an overnight residential program. And so I started the photojournalism program where we went out, we gave the kids cameras, they went out, they photographed, they came back, they edited their photos, they picked one, they wrote a story about it, and then we put all of this together in what we called the C magazine. It's a program that they still run today, which is, I'm going to do a lot of really cool stuff in my life. That's one of the coolest things, one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done in my life. And so in one of the pilots, one of the very first times we ran the program, this little boy grabbed his camera, with set him free, ran down the trail, and he started yelling. And, when kids yell, it's usually not, you're like, uh-oh. And he's like, you guys, come here. You got to see this mushroom. You've got to see this mushroom. And Ryan's like, okay, let's go see the fun. Okay, this is cool. And so we look down. He's got his camera in his back pocket. He's like, oh my God, look at this mushroom. This kid is losing his mind over this mushroom. And it was a nice mushroom. It was a fine specimen. And he looks up at me and he goes, I think I want to be a photographer just like you someday. And I thought, that's it. I don't need to live anymore. Like that is the moment that all teachers live for, right? He had not made a photograph of the mushroom. And so that was 2010. In 2013, when I got stuck, I looked back at that memory through a really different lens. At the moment I was like, oh my God, I'm like, right. And so in 2013, when I got stuck, it was like, God, why am I photographing? Like, why do I photograph? This sucks. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm not doing another stick in the foreground. Like, and so when I looked back at that memory, I was like, that kid thinks that's what I do as a photographer. He thinks that I run down the trail with unbridled joy and lose my mind over mushrooms. And I don't. I look for a stick to put in the foreground. And that changed everything for me. I mean, I have a fourth grader to thank for putting joy into my work. And so I had 3 weeks left of my residency, and I decided at that moment that I was going to throw just about everything that I had learned in photography out the window and be like, all right, I'm playing like a fourth grader. And I mean, I lost my mind over the ice. It was winter. It was a winter residency. Ice is not something we see a lot of in Phoenix, Arizona. And so
Probably
it
not.
was all like,
Not in
you can
Florida either.
imagine, right, right. You can imagine how exciting that it was, so new and so different, but I was looking at it as if I was losing my mind. And I at that moment said, I am not going to make a photograph of anything unless I lose my mind like the mushroom kid. And I made 3 weeks, 3 weeks of the absolute most ridiculously poor images. They were horrible. I mean, they were just awful pictures. But the major thing with that, they were finally my photographs that expressed my joy. And like anything, when you start connecting creativity and you start connecting in a new and different way, you've got to practice it. And you practice it over and over and you get better at it. You learn about Gestalt psychology and like, oh, okay, putting it here instead of here changes the meaning. Okay, I'm going to work on that. And so I got better at it. I got better at expressing myself. I got better at infusing my emotions in my photography, simply because I played like a kid. Like, I let go of expectations. There's a Zen Buddhism term called Shoshen, which is to embrace a beginner's mind. And I try to do that, whether I go to a new place or I go to a place like Acadia, where I've been over 450 days now in my journey. And I try to experience it as if I have never experienced it before. And it's really bringing back that childlike, that excitement of discovery and curiosity. And so for me, that's been a learned skill, is interjecting that joy and that emotion into my work. It's been a journey. I'm
Very
still
cool
working on
journey. Very cool journey. Upgrade your experience with our premium subscription. Enjoy exclusive features, enhanced content, and seamless extended interviews. Elevate your enjoyment and personal growth with our premium subscription today. If you enjoy the Creative Warrior podcast, the female heart and soul of photography, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. Thank you. You have to overcome a kind of a perception of adulthood too, I think, in that process, where as you become an adult, the idea of playing is ridiculous and it's childish and all those other things. But I think so there's another game we have been taught that we have to either throw away because it's garbage, so put it in where it belongs and recycle it. No, don't recycle that one. Just, shred that one. But we have to allow ourselves to play. That's like, you have to give yourself permission.
Yeah, and I explore this idea in the adventure travel memoir book that I'm working on, So Said the River. And I have lines, and I don't remember them exactly, but it's like, who said adulthood had to be a slog through mud? Like, I'm a responsible human being. I am not a burden on society. I pay my bills on time. I sometimes even get my garbage can out to the curb on time. Like, I'm being a responsible human being. I'm trying to be as kind as I can to the outside world, to people. I'm trying to make a difference in the world. But who said this had to be a slog through mud? Like, why can't we reconnect with that inner child? And like you brought up, like a lot of it is like being immature. It's like, well, if I splash in a puddle, is that immature? And I guess it goes back to what I had said earlier. Who cares? Like, whose life are you trying to live? Like, are you trying, like, does splashing in a puddle bring you joy? Does it bring you fulfillment? For me, if as long as I'm not
Yeah.
destroying bubbles and falling, like, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna do sand angels in the snow because it's fun, because it's hilarious. And I don't expect the rest of the world to find that funny, like, or fulfilling. But nobody else is living our life, like, or my life. And so it is up to me to define what that is. And that's hard when you've got society telling you you really shouldn't be immature. Really, why are you taking point classes? You're 47, you're 46 years old. Are you kidding me? Like, why would you do that? And it's like, well, the reason is because I want to. Like, right? Like, because I decide, like, and you decide for your life. And again, you don't have to take point classes. You don't have to paint. You don't have to splash. You don't have to splash in puddles. You don't have to do sand angels or snow angels. Like, that's fine. But you have to figure out what it is for you that gets you excited. And I'm far far enough in this life. I am far enough in my journey and this some of the challenges that I've had over the years where I I'm gonna do what fulfills me because I've only got one shot at this. And I don't have any idea why we're here in the first place. I don't know what any of this life means, but I'm gonna try to have it mean something in this short amount of time. And so, you know, if people think it's immature, that's their problem. It's their judgment. And I wish that we had less judgment in this world. I really do. But it is an unfortunate thing that we have to deal with. Some is better than others, but I mean, it's just noise at this point. I just go splash in the puddles because it makes life way.
It does. Okay, so this
That was
kind of
intense.
leaps. I know
Like,
that
another cup of coffee after that one.
this leaps into kind of another subject about balance. So, how do you balance your need for self care and mental health with the demands of having a busy photography career? Because I know you have a very busy scheduled and you're very organized. And how do you balance taking care of yourself in all of that process?
Yeah, this is something that's actually quite hard for me. I get so excited about my work that I have a tendency to work all the time and run myself into the ground. And I have part of it is just being much more aware of that. And I would say in the last 3 to 4 years, especially, self-care has become a major focus of my growth. It's not something it was like, no, I'm just going to keep trying to achieve. I'm going to keep trying to make everybody else happy. I'm going to try and, I'm going to keep, and then I would crash and, I would have some health issues, like I would have back spasms, or I would just be completely exhausted. And in the last 3 or 4 years, I feel like I've become more mindful of that, to the point where I have actually started to schedule time for breaks. A great example of this is this year. I last year I ended up running 4 back-to-back workshops in October, November timeframe, and it sounded like a really efficient thing to do at the time.
Sounds exhausting.
Well, it was. And I essentially ended up crashing and sleeping almost all of November. I got sick in December, not COVID, thankfully, but it was just utter exhaustion. And I think that's hard for people who put everything they have into their work. And I do try, like if I'm going to do something, it's going 120%. Like there is no half, we don't do 50%. Like you get everything from me. And that's exhausting. And I just have to recognize, like this year, I knew that my May was back to back to back. It was 5 weeks. I was going to have 2 days off. And it was like, okay, you are going to prepare yourself before this. You're going to eat right. You're going to sleep. Like you're going to prioritize sleep. You're not going to run yourself into the ground beforehand. And you're going to pace yourself when you get into this May, this 5 weeks of time frame, where you're going to take a 15-minute nap in between workshop sessions. And so I'll sneak into my room while you guys are doing, you're finishing your lunch or whatever. I'll sneak in and take a 15-minute nap, or, I won't stay up late, or, I'll pace myself. And so in this case, this year, I actually decided to take off 3 months in the summer. So I'm actually, this is basically my first commitment in 3 months, my work commitments of 3 months and 2.5 months really. And so that's because I needed that time to recover. And when I say off, it's not vacation per se. It's just I'm not in a workshop situation, for example, or I'm not, on the hook to do presentations and whatnot. It's creative free time. I've finished a manuscript of my book. I rewrote I redid my website. Like there's definitely like, it wasn't me like sleeping for 3 months. It was just giving myself the time I needed to, recover, reentry, sleep. I've prioritized sleeping and eating well and exercise. I've been rowing a lot on my ergometer this summer. And like, so it's just, I know that I need those chunks of time. And so I now schedule that for myself, not just on a macro scale, like on a yearly scale, but also from a day-to-day perspective. I actually have, I've had to kind of reel myself back a little bit. And I give myself 3 major tasks a day, only 3. I used to have these laundry lists and it was just overwhelming. And so now, on my phone, my to-do list is you get 3 things. And what ends up happening is I do the 3 things in the first 2 hours of the day, and then I do the next day's work, and then I'm ahead. And that makes me feel really great. Like by the time, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I've done 3 days of work. Makes me feel pretty great. And so then I don't feel guilty or bad about saying, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go see the new Barbie movie, or I'm going to go do something else, or I'm going to go paint, or I'm going to it's, yeah. And the other thing is I actually relax through my work. So that's like, I relax through writing, like I relax through painting, like it's life and creative, like the creative space don't really, there's no lines, like it just kind of works together. So a lot of it is just paying attention to what would be fun to do right now. Sometimes that's work, sometimes it's not.
And what feels too stressful. Has there ever been a time when you had to make a choice and a compromise to keep your life balanced?
Oh, sure. Sure. I've declined or pushed out, presentations, for example, because I'm like, I'm coming right off of that workshop. There is no way that I can be mentally ready, in the right mental headspace to give a presentation, in 24 hours, for example. And so, yeah, it'll be like, we need to push that off, 2 months or 3 months or whatever. Yeah. I mean, I've said I've not done photography submissions because I've been exhausted, and the world does not end when you don't submit to a calendar for a year. Like it doesn't end. I mean, you want to try, and when you're in your own business, it's really hard, right? Because you want to balance this idea of giving yourself opportunity and not losing opportunity, but also not working 24 hours a day because you're excited about it and it's everything. And it's trying to make those decisions in those moments where it's like, yeah, I just can't do it, and being okay with it and not beating yourself up because of it. Like the world has just never ended when I've said no, at least not yet.
Yeah. Did you have to learn how to say no, or was that intuitive for you?
Yes. Oh, no, no, no. I mean, growing up, like, I mean, that's what women do. We say yes to everything. We do everything for everybody, right? Like we just keep giving, right? And so at some point, like you just don't
You're
have anything
empty.
else to
Yeah.
give,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you realize you're like, oh, I've given none of this to myself. Like, what? Like, what's going on here? So no, I think I started really understanding the value of no when my list, my business plan was so long. Like all the fun things that I could do. And I do a business plan once a year and I try to prioritize all of the fun things. And that's hard. It's gotten harder actually as the years have gone on because there's just so much cool stuff. Like
Your fun
there's
list
just
is
so much.
long.
Yeah. But that means I can't do some things that I want to do right now. Or I miss them. And those are deliberate decisions because I'm focused on the things that I truly, truly believe in and I'm truly excited about. And that's just the way the world turns. And so I have had to say no. I've had to learn how to say no. And it has been heartbreaking at times. But again, it kind of goes back to that strength and that confidence of being like, you're saying no to this, but it's allowing you the time to do this, like this sparkly thing over here.
Woo!
Right? And it's really your attitude about it, right? Are you grateful for the things that you have, or are you sad for the things that you lack? And for me, it's like, okay, well, mind shift. Yeah, it's unfortunate I can't do it all. I can't do it all. I mean, even if
There's
I
a
work 24 hours a day, I'm not going to do it all.
there's a level of modesty that comes in that where you understand who you are and what you can give out and at what point is too much. And everybody has a different point.
Yeah.
But it takes that quality of modesty to see that and to recognize it and be okay with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's a, part of it is like you talk a lot about understanding yourself and understanding your values. And a lot of what I'll do is, when an opportunity comes in and you can't plan for everything, right? So like an opportunity comes in and it's like, okay, does this align with my values? Like is it going to encourage adventure? Is it going to encourage fun? Is it going to encourage self-reliance for myself and others? Is it going to encourage confidence and courage and bravery? And if the answer is no, then it kind of makes it pretty easy to just be like, yeah, this doesn't fit with who I am. And I've had to make some of those hard decisions. And I mean, a great example of this would be something like Arizona Highways Magazine. Like I contribute to Arizona Highways Magazine. It is something that just happens. Early on in my career, I was really focused on it because it was a great opportunity. I live in Arizona. I was photographing Arizona a lot. Like, yay, like, woo. And in that 2013 timeframe where I realized, like, why was I a photographer? What was I trying to say with my work? What was I doing with my life? I realized that I wasn't really super connected with cactus and the Sonoran Desert, and that I had been trying to force that a lot in my work. And when I went to Acadia, I was like, I love water. Like, I love water. Like, and it was a weird thing because I was terrified of water where I couldn't see my feet. But it was like, I really want to understand this better. Like, I want to understand ice. I want to understand currents and tides and oceanography and like all of this stuff. And so when I came back from the artist in residency, I was like, I'm not going to photograph cactus anymore. I'm going to go photograph water. And that, water in the desert is not super abundant. But I will find it. I will find it in Arizona. But what that did is that sort of limited how I contributed to Arizona highways. And it was like, well, I I kind of goes back to that we talked earlier is like, well, they have a style, they have a need. Do I fit that?
Not
Maybe like in
anymore.
this
Yeah.
in this section, yeah. Like, you know, I they, just in July's issue, for example, they had a photograph of bubbles that I had made on dandelions. Like that's the connection, right? Like that's where I can contribute my voice to their magazine and their goals, but I'm not going to photograph a lot of cactus. And so I've limited, if you will, my own opportunities but it's because I'm writing a book and I'm teaching workshops in places that I love and I'm connecting with water and things like that. And so I'm giving up that to focus on the things that really truly fulfill me and bring meaning to my own life. And I mean it happens. And I'm okay with it, right? You just got to be okay with it.
Absolutely. You know, when we talk about time management and making decisions, one of the things I know about you that we'll share is you travel alone. You go on explorations on your own. As a woman, that's very scary. At least it is for me.
Mhm.
So you also lead workshops. So you're leading a bunch of women into the unknown. And that could have a level of potential fear. I know you've taken multiple classes on how to deal with any potential problems. And so, you know, you've covered yourself, you know, inside and out, you know, for those kind of issues. But
To the
how
best
do
of my
you,
ability, yes.
yeah, to your best, yeah, you've done a great job. So how do you then, when you're on these trips, and how do you plan for the unexpected? How do you manage your time when you're doing all these traveling, you know, on these travel workshops or whatever you want to call them?
Well, so there's kind of two different sections of that. There's kind of like my own personal work where I kind of like go out and do my thing. And then, you know, my all women's workshops, my geography workshops are really focused on giving women an opportunity to travel alone, but with a other people. So it's kind of a progression. It's a step so that it's not as scary, right? Like, and so for my own perspective, you know, I didn't sleep in a tent until my early 20s. So like this idea of me being super comfortable in the outdoors is not something I really grew up in. I mean, I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas, where I was, you know, in a creek and kind of a forested environment, and I played outside a lot. But as I got older, like being outside was where all the scary things happened. Like it just wasn't a place that I really spent a lot of time in. And it really wasn't until, you know, the late 90s, early 2000s where I really started traveling. It was with my ex-husband, where he did a lot of hiking, and so he kind of introduced me to that. One of my closest friends, from Stanford, my college roommate, she was very involved in the outdoors. Like she was very comfortable. She was kind of my inspiration, and so together those two really helped me kind of connect with the outdoors. But being by myself was like a whole new thing. And I think it really derived from this idea that I'm just not going to wait. Like, I don't want to wait for other people to be able to join me. I have places to go, I have things that I want to do. And I really just don't want to be on other people's time and their schedule. And you know, I had plenty of adventures with friends and whatnot, and you know, those schedules align, and it's when they do, it's amazing. But a lot of what I do is I love traveling by myself. I like being out there in the wild by myself and connecting in my own individual way. I'm relatively introverted, so I love I love the downtime. And um I have hopefully done the best that I can in terms of protecting myself. So, you know, self-defense. I subscribe to AAA membership, for example. My tire just exploded on the road just less than a month ago, and I called AAA to help me. And so I've tried to build up, you know, I carry an inReach, for example, so that I can text when I don't have cell phone service. I'm very conscientious about my surroundings. I'll leave if I don't feel comfortable, whether or not it's a viable threat or not. I will just leave. It's not worth figuring out if it's viable or not. You just get out. And so I try to be really mindful about that. And you know, the fear's still there. I mean, it's, you know, I'm gonna pop a tire. You know, is a bear gonna eat my face off? I don't know. Like, like,
But that's what fear
but I
is designed to do. It's to be there to protect us, really, not
right.
to keep us hostage.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got to kind of parse out what's rational and what's irrational.
Yeah,
And a fair
exactly.
bit of what my head was irrational. And so there is rational fear. Like you should be worried about bears. in places, and take the necessary precautions, and know what you're getting into. Like, don't go to a place unless bear safety, for example, or mountain lion safety, or whatever it
And
is.
how to actually use the bear spray that you're carrying.
Right, exactly. Practice with it. And
Mhm.
so I think really the workshops that I lead are really an extension of that. And I want women to feel comfortable in these kind of more natural environments that are a little bit maybe scary, they're uncertain, they're not familiar, and give women an opportunity to be in a safe space. Like, we're there for you. Like, there's never been a bear attack on 10 women at the same time, right? Although we've had some great bear encounters in Cades Cove, which are maybe a story for another time, but it's the workshops for me are a way to help others kind of feel comfortable. And we've had women who, I give an actual handout about traveling alone safely. We talk about those kinds of challenges. And we've had women who have, bought new vehicles and they travel on their own now, and they sleep in the back of their car and they feel confident about doing it. All right, yeah. But that's success. Like, and I know we're there to express ourselves photographically, but a lot of it is about the adventure. And a lot of it, if you're not comfortable in your natural surroundings, again, it goes back to that creative energy. Like, you're just going to be so focused on fear and focused on, it's survival mode, really. It's fight or flight, that you aren't going to be able to unleash that or unlock that creative energy that you need to make great, meaningful photographs in your definition. And so it's just a lot of what we do on those workshops is just simply being and existing and getting comfortable. And that's really important to me, is women feeling comfortable in these environments that are not familiar. Yeah.
That's really a gift that you give to women, to allow them to get through that fear and then take themselves to that next level, because they've already gone through that one. Every fear we overcome, the bigger our circle becomes of what we're now comfortable with. So we grow the more we overcome fear. That's how that works. So the fact that you're helping women, particularly ones that love nature and love photography, that's just a win-win altogether. But you're helping them overcome all those things and get to that next level. So that's a beautiful thing. So we're gonna come
power.
back. It is.
It's power.
It
right?
is. Yeah.
So yeah.
It is. Empowering women. Yes. So we're going to come back again. We're going to get a little deeper into the inner voice and self-doubt, scary stuff, and then overcoming creative blockers and how do we feed the creative soul.
Ooh,
talked a little bit about it, I believe, before, and then a little bit more. So we will be back with Colleen.
Sounds great.
One more thing before you go, Colleen. Tell us about Sheography.
So Sheography, All Women Photography Workshops, aims to put the her in the photographer. So our workshops and retreats offer women of all ages, all backgrounds, photographic skills, anything goes. I try to offer a safe and supportive learning environment for exploring photography, creativity, and life in the outdoors. So if you're someone who wants to travel on your own, but not alone, I have small groups where we can foster kind of learning and discovering more about the outdoors in a safe space. We learn all about photography. We teach, technical skills, techniques, creative approaches, so that you feel more confident in expressing what's inside of you, not what's inside of me or anybody else, but I try to aim to bring out the best in everyone in individual ways. And so if you want to just come on out and share in the joy of photography and art and fun with other women, Sheography is a great opportunity to do that. So to learn more about Sheography, you can go to www.sheography.com, and we're looking forward to seeing you out there.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of The Creative Warriors. We want to thank Colleen for sharing her heart and soul with us. We hope you enjoy our fun conversation and gain some valuable takeaways. In our next episode, get ready to learn more with Colleen. If you have any thoughts, suggestions, or questions, do not hesitate to reach out to me at arielfaithphotography.com. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep the conversation going. Stay curious and have a happy artistic journey. If you enjoyed this podcast, The Creative Warriors, the female heart and soul of photography, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. Thank you for listening to the Creative Warriors podcast, the female heart and soul of photography. See you next episode.